All right, welcome into the JC Hoops Pod with Jackson Collier and Mason Choate. We're from HawgBeat.com, HawgBeat.com. That is the Rivals website covering your Arkansas Razorbacks, who will be taking on the Duke Blue Devils in the ACC SEC Challenge on Wednesday evening at Bud Walton Arena. I'm sure you've seen the ticket prices. They're insane. I'm so thankful that I don't have to pay for a ticket. I'm sorry to everybody who had to, but it's gonna be an incredible atmosphere. It's an Arkansas team that needs a win desperately and could definitely use a win against a team like Duke, especially after the past few games. Jackson, we're gonna get into all of that, but first of all, so you've had some time to calm down a little bit, Jackson. I know you were a little bit worked up during feast week. You were getting into it online. I told you you suck on Twitter. Maybe we can talk about that a little bit. But are you okay? Have you calmed down a little bit? You feeling a little bit okay?
Oh, dude, I'm great. I've been great from the start. I just trying to do my job as an objective analyst and point out the things that are working and the things that aren't working. So, yeah, I've been good ever since. I had a really good Thanksgiving up here in Michigan and got to cook all the good food. So I had a great feast week. There's a lot of good basketball on, good football on, all that sort of stuff. So I wasn't too torn up about it.
Well, as far as Arkansas goes, though, let's get into it because we don't want to waste people's time. So it's an Arkansas team that obviously lost 2 out of 3 of the Battle for Atlantis. You lost to Memphis, you lost to North Carolina. It took double overtime to beat Stanford. So 3 games that from start to finish, you didn't know if Arkansas was going to win, and so that's tough. Tremont Mark, you don't know if you're going to have him against Duke. And then if you go back to before Battle for Atlantis, you lost to UNC Greensboro at home. So for this basketball team, I mean, Eric Musselman he's in like a mode where like I would not want to be around him because he said on Monday that he's watched 14 hours worth of film just so he could send cut ups to all of the players individually from at least the Battle for Atlantis. I think he was saying that he also cut up stuff from UNCG. But I mean, like when Muss is no longer delegating to the assistants or whoever it may be that normally sends out the cut ups, when he's doing that himself, you know that like it's first of all it's serious, and second of all, you just don't want to be around him right now because he is in head down. I got to figure out how we can win basketball games mode.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, I think he's a strong enough basketball mind. I mean, I'm not trying to say anything about anybody on staff. He has assembled a really strong staff here too. But, there's a reason he's been an NBA head coach. There's a reason he's been so successful at the college level. It's because he has a really strong basketball mind. And when he gets in that mode where he's like, I need to take control, I need to do this, you know, that says a lot, number one, about how urgent things are right now. I mean, he's been around college basketball a long time. He knows the importance of big wins. He knows the importance of getting things turned around before conference play starts. And look, I came on here on the post game shows and was talking after UNCG about how bad of a loss it was and how they needed to win 2 of 3 in the Bahamas and they didn't. Because now you have Duke and you have a few tune-up games, and even Oklahoma is going to be tough this year. They're undefeated and have a couple of nice wins. So you really have a tough road ahead before you even get to conference play, including Wednesday against Duke. So I think number one, him having to break down all this stuff or wanting to break down all of this stuff himself, that's taking a really large burden on his shoulders. That he feels like this is a crucial point of the season. We really need to figure things out, and I'm going to spearhead that. I think it's smart. I think he absolutely has to do it. I think the staff is more than capable of doing it, but this way Muss is like, no, I'm going full on control freak mode, and I'm getting things figured out.
Well, it's not even like control freak. It's you're the head coach. You got to figure it out. And shout out to Eric Musselman for recognizing that as a head coach of a college athletics program, that he has to be the one to figure out the problems, and you can't just go blaming, right? Like that's kind of how this thing works, right, Jackson? It's not
No
like
shade done there at all, right?
I don't think anybody else would do that, right? I just don't know. But yeah, so shout out, like that's the difference between Eric Musselman and other coaches is that he is wired that way. I think Caleb Battle said earlier in the year that he's a mad scientist. Like that's the best way to describe Eric Musselman, and he is in mad scientist mode, trying to figure out how to get this to work. But it's really just been a tough week on them. So they had travel issues trying to get to the Battle for Atlantis. They got there late, and then on the way back, it sounds like they had travel issues as well. Eric Musselman said on Monday they left the hotel in Atlantis roughly 6 a.m. on Saturday, got back at roughly 3. He said that's a long travel day that should have been a 3-hour flight, but turned into a longer flight. And then, I think he was saying that's, I guess the good thing is with the longer flight, I think he was able to get in some more film. Like he said, he watched like 7 hours worth of film. So, like maybe that helped a little bit, but obviously you don't want to be traveling. By the time he talked to us on Monday, they hadn't even practiced yet since the Battle for Atlantis. And he got a little frustrated just because it's like, it's been tough for them, but it's tough circumstances that they had, 3 games in 3 days, especially with the travel issues. But now you're back home. They're going to practice, and you don't know if Tremont Mark's going to play. I think that's the biggest news right now. Stretchered off of the court against North Carolina on Friday. He was released from the hospital on Friday. From what we could tell, from what he tweeted out, like everything seemed okay. But what we learned on Monday was that he is truly, like, his status is unknown. He's not in, he's not out, he's not doubtful, he's not probable. It's literally just they don't know. But Eric Musselman did say T Mark was in a wheelchair on the travel day. He's had MRIs done. Today, Monday, he's seeing a spine specialist. So that's kind of where it's at. They just don't know. But that's a guy that scored 34 points against North Carolina. He's your leading scorer to this point in the season. You need to have that guy if you possibly can, Jackson.
Yeah, no, Tremont Mark is really. I don't even think this team has a leader right now, but if there was one, I'd point to Tremont Mark. He's definitely been the leader in terms of style of play. He's been the one that's been scoring. He's been kind of putting the team on his back, getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line, playing good hard defense, all that sort of stuff. I still think this team needs to find a real true leader, but he's clear. I think Tremont Mark has been playing the best of any Razorback so far this season. So obviously, his losing him hurts no matter what. Like you said, we don't know his status at all. It's just kind of unknown, which we're not going to speculate on any of that. So I guess if you're not going to speculate about it and you don't know his status, you go into it just assuming he's not going to be there because it's just so up in the air. Which and Arkansas hasn't really been able to prep with him. I mean, they haven't really had time to prep at all. Like you said, they haven't practiced yet. But practice would begin on Monday today, depending on what the specialist said, with or without Tremont Mark. So it's a huge loss because that's a guy that the offense is kind of built around. A lot of times when they're going in ISO situations, you're going these overload sets, these 2-man games, it's Tremont Mark with the ball in his hands, and he's making a play. It's been him and Caleb Battle, really, for the most part. And even in transition, he's been one that's been pushing the ball in transition, scoring in transition. He's played solid defense, rebounding well, too. So he's been doing everything on a team that has struggled in all the areas that he has done well in.
Yeah. So in another injury situation, we don't know Jalen Graham's status either. And I feel like he's a guy that they definitely could have used in the battle for Atlantis. And with this Duke team coming in, I mean, obviously Duke's going to have size, they're going to have length, they're going to have athleticism, everything that you need to be a championship level basketball team. Duke has that. It all starts with Kyle Filipowski. Jackson, how much Duke basketball have you watched? And I mean, I guess just go ahead and give us your scouting report. While you do it, I'll pull up some stats and you just kind of go off and do your little nerd basketball thing with Duke.
Look, I mean, it's a really good basketball team. It just is. I watched the game. I watched their game against Arizona at home, and I watched them play Michigan State. I thought they looked really strong in both games. Arizona really impressed me when they beat Duke. But they're just a really solid basketball team. They have a lot of talent. I was surprised that Filipowski would come back, and he did. That's a mismatch problem for Arkansas. He's 7 foot, 230 pounds. He's scoring at will. He's rebounding at will. And it's an Arkansas team that hasn't defended the post well. They're allowing layups. They really don't have much of a post defense at all. Their one post presence that's healthy right now that's played decent defense is Mekhi Mitchell, and he keeps getting in foul trouble way too early and not really rebounding the ball all that well.
Yeah,
So
what's up with that, by the way? I'm sorry to cut you off, but I feel like I don't really remember Mackay getting into foul trouble so early so often last year.
yeah, so I think part of it is he's being aggressive in dumb times sometimes. I think some of the calls have not been great. There have been times where he was vertical playing good post defense, he got called for a foul. It's a judgment call on the official that I didn't agree with at times. I think there was like one or two of those. And then there are plenty of just like stupid aggressive plays he's made. So I think he just needs to calm down, play smart, and not get in foul trouble because you can look at any number of advanced analytics, this, that, the other. You watch on a film, he's helped generate extra possessions for the team that don't show up in box scores, that don't show up in the analytics. Like, it doesn't count as a rebound if you tip it to a teammate. Now, he's done that multiple times in the past few games where there'll be a loose ball and he'll tip it to a teammate. Doesn't count as a rebound, but if you're tracking it from the bench, it's like, oh, Makai got a tip or whatever, got his hand on the ball. He'll box out his primary man in the post. Secondary boxing out has been a really big issue, but he'll box out primary, and his guy won't get the rebound. Doesn't mean he always comes away with the ball, but I digress. It's one of those things. He's just got to play smarter and not get into foul trouble if Arkansas wants any chance against teams with good posts. And they've played a few so far, like Baycott at North Carolina. And Mekhi Mitchell didn't really play all that much. Didn't really play all that well that game either. He's got to stay out of foul trouble. He's got to play smarter. He's already got a 15-point, 10 rebound double this season against weaker competition. But Musselman is complimentary of him after that game. He played smart, played like a leader, and all that sort of stuff. He needs to do that every game. If he can find that every game, Arkansas would be in a much better position.
Okay, keep going on Duke then. So where were you at as far as talking about Duke when I interrupted?
Oh, just mainly, they're a really good team. Filipowski, I was talking about post defense, because Filipowski, at his size, I don't know who Arkansas sticks on him other than Mekhi Mitchell, who can legitimately defend him. I mean, Chandler Lawson looked pretty good. The team as a whole looked pretty good guarding Zach Edey of Purdue when they ran Chandler Lawson, and I think Chandler Lawson was on Edey, and he ran a really tough ball denial at the guard spots to make it difficult to pass the ball down the post. That might be something you have to try to do against Filipowski, but then he also has an added threat that Edey doesn't have. He can step out and shoot three. Doesn't shoot a ton, shoots around 3 a game, but he's knocking them down. So that's an added layer. I don't know how you end up guarding that, because if you stick Mekhi Mitchell out on him, and he steps out, Makai's at a complete disadvantage because Filipowski is versatile enough to be able to hit the outside shot and put the ball on the floor. I really think that position against Duke is really going to be, that matchup in particular is going to be where Duke thrives, that 5 spot. And then also, Eric Musselman talked a lot about, or he had an extended answer in the Bahamas after the loss to North Carolina about the 3 spot. He felt like Arkansas didn't have the length to compete or to defend like they had in the past with Aldisi Toney, with the Martin twins at Nevada, and with Stanley Amude, with these guys who are like 6'7" playing defense on the wings, because Arkansas has played against these long wings. Duke has length on the wing again. I mean, you're looking at 6'8", 6'5", 6'5" in their kind of wing hybrid forward rotation and guard rotation. So really good length there as well. Not as much per se as like a Harrison Ingram or some others that we've seen against North Carolina, but still plenty of length there. So it's going to be interesting to see, number one, how Arkansas defends Filipowski. Number two, how that defense goes against those wing spots. And then on top of all that, you have to worry about the point guard position, because Arkansas also struggled against the point guard position. RJ Davis put up a career high for North Carolina. The UNCG guard, I can't remember his name, he put up a bunch of points against Arkansas. So the point guard defense really has to be a lot better. They have a senior point guard in Jeremy Roach. He and Proctor are both kind of handling ball handling responsibilities right now, and the two of them are combining for 8 assists a game, and that almost matches Arkansas's assists per game as a team.
Wow. Yeah, assists have been tough to come by for Arkansas. You talked about the point guard play. I mean, what is it? Because all we could talk about preseason was just the depth at guard for Arkansas, and obviously you have the injury to Tremont Mark, so you don't really. I mean, you kind of throw that out of the scenario. But L. Ellis, I mean, you haven't. I don't even. We don't even really know what's going on with him. Layden Blocker stepped up, but he's still a freshman. Caliph Battle is like it seems like a really hot or cold guy. Um, I mean, who else? I mean, Devo Davis, but we know Devo Davis is just the Devo Davis experience. You're going to get good Devo, you're going to get bad Devo, and you take good Devo, or you take bad Devo because you know good Devo is really good. But like outside of that, I mean, that's a lot of names, but it hasn't been. It hasn't. The performance has not been up to the level that we were really expecting, right?
No, absolutely. And I think I don't know what's causing it, but the issue has been so far that they just aren't performing up to expectations. For whatever reason, it seems like L. Ellis has lost his confidence. I don't know what's up with that. I don't even think he scored in the Bahamas. He played however many minutes over the last two games and got 0 points. I don't remember his specific stat line against Stanford, but I think he didn't score that game as well. Um, Arkansas needs L. Ellis to be a contributor and not just be a contributor, be able to score and facilitate. He had an insane assist rate last season playing for Louisville. Obviously, put up a lot of points at Louisville. Part of that was because he was the only ball handling option in terms of his assist rate. But the thinking was, oh, well, Arkansas is going to have plenty of pieces for him to actually facilitate to. My thinking when I did my scout on L. Ellis whenever he came from Louisville in the offseason, I thought he was a more of an off ball guard that the staff might have recruited as a point guard. Turns out, I think that ended up being the case. And, I think that's still lingering. Maybe that adjustment to being a true point guard. Like I said, he played it at Louisville, but playing a true point guard in a more legitimate college scheme like Musselman's, I think is taking some time to adjust. Top of that, you already mentioned the Devo Davis experience. Need better shot selection from him. It's just he has not taken really good shot selection this year. Really need better selection from him. His defense hadn't been as great this year either, which is kind of disappointing. But nobody on the team really has played great defense. Tremont Mark, I haven't loved a ton of the shots he's taken, but he's hitting them. So it's hard for me to sit here as an observer and be like, he shouldn't be taking those shots if he's hitting them. A lot of those contested mid range jumpers. Layden Blocker has done a lot of things well. Must praised his tenacity, his toughness, his energy, but little things that he needs to learn about. Facilitating more, running the offense more, and then also not crashing the offensive glass. Which there are two sides to that argument. Arkansas hadn't been offensive rebounding all that well. Layden Blocker has like the second or third highest offensive rebounding rate and had the second most offensive rebounds in the Bahamas on the team behind Trevin Brazile. Musselman made the point that might have added to the effect of how bad the transition defense is. You don't have your point guard back there. I understand that point. Transition defense has been bad with or without Layden Blocker on the court, though. Wrapping it up, though, guards have to play better. L. Ellis needs to be an actual facilitating point guard. Something has got to click for him to be able to contribute at a high level. And I really think that's the key to making this thing sort of run. He played well against Purdue, played well in some of the earlier seasons. The offense was really running well. But he just hasn't been lately. And I think that's really hindered the offense a lot.
One last guy I want to talk about was this big guy right here, Trevor Brazile. You kind of mentioned him a little bit there, but the big thing in the last game was right here, 0 points. All he had was 3 rebounds in this game against North Carolina, I believe it was. Yeah, 3 rebounds, missed all 4 of his shots. We talked to him on Monday, and he was asked about it, and he said that it's hard to go out there night in, night out and perform at a high level. 3 basketball games, 3 days, 3 quality opponents. But we've talked about it time and time again on the post game shows with Trevor Brazile. If this is the first round guy, like he needs to be able to perform night in and night out. And maybe he's not going out there and giving you a double against North Carolina after doing so, the previous 2 nights, but you at least need some scoring from him and more than 3 rebounds. I mean, this is supposed to be your star player, and three rebounds and 0 points in a game against a a North Carolina team that's a big win for you if you win that game. That's tough, right, Jackson?
Yeah, you need Trevin Brazile to make some sort of an impact. 0 points, 3 rebounds. That's really not much of an impact at all. And add on top of that, his defense hasn't been great the past few games either. Part of that could be the 3 games in three days, the legs not being there. I've been disappointed in his contests on perimeter jump shots, even some of his contests interior. He'll block shots, but then also his interior post defense hasn't been all that great too. So I think some of it you never want to speculate again, but like some of it might be lingering mental stuff from an injury. Like coming back from an ACL injury like that, I know it's got to be difficult. Um, but you don't really know what he's going through, what his thinking is, all that sort of stuff.
Okay, let's move on to just this Duke game in general. So you talked about Duke, you talked about their team. They're 5-1. The one loss being to Arizona. You look at Arkansas. What? So they've lost 3 of their last 4. But it's in Bud Walton Arena. We know that Arkansas, no matter what Arkansas team it is, who the coach is, a game like this, Arkansas is probably going to show up. And so you're gonna have the home court advantage of Bud Walton Arena. It's gonna be rocking. I looked at Ken Palm. Ken Palm has Duke favored by 3. ESPN has Duke favored. I think it's 52.3% in favor of Duke. Where are you at, Jackson? I know Arkansas. It's tough. I think you need to throw records out in this game for sure.
Yeah, no, you definitely need to throw records out right now. Musselman's going like we talked about at the top of the show. He's going. He's nitpicking. He gave every single player their report from the games in the Bahamas. He looked through every single play and he's looking at fixing stuff. And they're hitting the gym today and tomorrow. Then they got the game Wednesday. I think we'll see an improved Arkansas product. I think we'll see some of the issues, if not completely fixed, at least addressed and attempted to fix. On top of that, you have home court advantage. You have a wide out from the crowd. It's a massive, massive game. So I don't think the 4-3, the loss to UNCG, I don't think that comes into play at all on Wednesday. I think it'll be a really good Arkansas team versus a really good Duke team in a really good environment. And you take all that into account, who knows what'll happen? I mean, that's why it's a pick 'em right now. That's why it's so close. I mean, preseason when Ken Palm first dropped, I think the analytics there had Arkansas favored by like half a point or a full point. So there hasn't been a ton of movement. A few points, even though Arkansas has already lost 3 games and hasn't looked great, still being within 3 or so on Ken Palm, which is probably if not the best, one of the best analytics tools in college basketball. I think that says something about, the margin of error and the ability for this team, the talent of this team to still correct things and make things happen. They actually have to do it, and I'm confident seeing Musselman's past rosters and teams being able to fix things. And if he's going full bore on it right now, who knows? I still think I'm picking Duke to win this game, probably by 4-ish. But I think that's my official pick is Duke in a close one.
Okay, we have a couple more things to hit here. We're going to talk about we're going to get to some questions from HawgBeat.com. So Jackson, I want you to pull up your mailbag and talk about some of the questions that you answered on the story that we're going to have posted on Tuesday morning on HawgBeat.com, HawgBeat.com. We will post a free article where Jackson answers some of the mailbag questions from HawgBeat subscribers and Twitter users. But if you want to confirm and make sure that Jackson answers your question and you get your Arkansas information, you need to subscribe to HawgBeat.com. Now, I will say this: by the time you're listening to this podcast, you completely missed out on our best deal of the year. That's why you need to be following us on Twitter. The Twitter profiles are down below. Been scrolling the whole show, so make sure you follow us on Twitter. That's how you find out all the information going on with us, with HawgBeat.com, and with the Arkansas Razorbacks. Okay, let's get to this. So Arkansas dropped out of the top 25. We talked about lost 3 of the last 4. That's just what's going to happen. So obviously a win over Duke, you probably get back in. You got to beat Duke, but that's the only game they have this week, right? I think.
Check.
No,
Think so.
I'm looking. Yeah, so the next game is December 4th. So that's next Monday against Furman. So
Yeah.
a week from Monday. Yeah, I don't know. You think so? You think they can get back in the top 25 if they beat Duke, number 7?
Uh, Probably not. Just knowing the way AP voters are. The AP poll is so hard to judge because it's just a group of voters and not all of them seem to watch games. Just bluntly, it doesn't seem because some of the votes just don't make sense. They either put their votes in before all the games are finished or they just didn't pay attention. Um, Realistically, if Arkansas beats Duke, maybe some more losses ahead of them would help, but I think they should be like 24, 25.
Okay. Okay. Sorry, I was typing. I'm trying to get this cool thing to say to get your questions answered on HawgBeat.com. Okay. Mailbag. So you did your mailbag.
I did.
Talk about some of the interesting questions, the ones that you answered, and talk us through your process of what you went through when answering it.
All right. So one question I thought was really interesting from Hogbeat user, the U of A. Is it time we stop referring to Muss as some portal genius? And I thought it was interesting because, it seems like this roster, at least so far, has not gelled as well, has not performed to expectations, and really the roles haven't been defined, all this sort of stuff. Um, so I guess there's some sort of question from people or some frustration maybe of these slow starts, especially when you bring in these portal classes. And maybe that has to do with like fitting pieces together. Like did this class not fit together oh so well? Does that make Muss a non-genius whatsoever? My answer to that was essentially I'm not. I'm going to hold off on that until the end of this season. I think look, everything he's done in the past has proven he can take really talented players from the portal, plug them into his system, and the team succeeds. Um, so I think, but I don't think that makes him necessarily like a portal genius, quote unquote. I think that just makes him a good coach that he can take good pieces and make them play well. But also, I mean, he's landed some really good top players in the portal. Audisi Tony was a huge get in the portal. So was Stanley Amude. L. Ellis was a massive get. Tremont Mark was a massive get. Caleb Battle was a massive get. So the ability to pull these really good players from top programs as well, and even just top names from even smaller programs, that makes him. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, he's a portal genius, but he's really good at working the portal. And the fact that
Did you mention Justin Smith in there?
Justin Smith, yeah,
Yeah, I feel like he's an example. I mean, like you could argue he's a top 3 guy since Muss took over at Arkansas as far as transfer additions, right?
I did a list in the offseason of the top 10 transfers of the Musselman era, and Justin Smith was in the top 3.
What? No, Note was 1, right? I think.
I think I had Note 1 and Justin Smith 2. If I had to, I could be wrong, but I think that's what my order was.
I think that's a good ranking. I think so.
And part of that's because Note was here for multiple years instead of just one like Smith. But Smith made a huge impact.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would love to answer more questions, but we got to run. Looking forward to this game, Arkansas versus Duke. The atmosphere. I've been thinking about it. So Kentucky in 2019, or maybe it was 2020 was the year, but Muss's first year, Kentucky, when Calipari got ejected, that's probably the loudest I've ever heard Bud Walton Arena. The 2021 Auburn game when they beat number 1 Auburn and everybody rushed the court, that was loud. I have high expectations for this one. I'm excited. I'm disappointed that you don't get to be there, Jackson.
Yeah, I'm disappointed too, but it is what it is. But it should be a great environment. I'll be obviously watching, and we'll obviously have a post game show up and ready for y'all to tune into. So, well, as always, we'll talk about the game. We'll take your guys' questions and do our best to answer them.
So make sure that you are subscribed to HawgBeat.com. Got it right there on the screen. So we're recording this on Monday. That's why you see these stories. But this is the latest of what's going on. We always have that at HawgBeat.com, and we also have inside information on the Trough message board. And that includes access to all of our premium stories, including this stuff you see here on the left side. If it has that R logo, that means that it's premium. If you subscribe, you get to read that And you also get access to all of our features on the message board. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Make sure that wherever you're watching this video right now, you return to this location for after the Arkansas Duke game. So tip-off is at 8:15 p.m. Central Time on ESPN. And whenever that game is over, Jackson and Riley McFerrin, who is the managing editor for HawgBeat.com, they're going to go live on our HawgBeat YouTube, my Twitter, the HawgBeat Twitter. Jackson, we need to get your Twitter set up with it.
Yeah, we do.
And then I'm going to join the guys whenever I can get around to it. I'm going to go to the post-game press conference. And then, as always, you see it right there on the screen, HawgBeat.com. We're going to have all of the post-game reaction there, everything you need to know. Just make sure you go to HawgBeat.com. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. Thank you for listening to this preview. And we are very, very excited to talk about the game. And hopefully we're talking about an Arkansas win because that's good for everybody. It's good for us, for business, and it's good for the fans. And it's definitely good for Eric Musselman. I think that more than anybody in this world, Eric Musselman wants Arkansas to win on Wednesday.
Oh, absolutely. And it's good for the people who follow me on Twitter who are tired of me posting negative things.
Yes, dude. I hate this version of Jackson. You did have a good video. You posted the video of them talking about the NBA broadcast where they were talking about Arkansas and you said the Hog is strong. I thought that was a good step in the right direction of you being a happier person.
Oh, I'm happy all the time.
Okay. Well, thanks, Jackson, and thank you everybody for listening to this episode of the JC Hoops Pod.